a very warm welcome to you. This is Business Today. It's the 3rd of February and we're ready for you. We've got the local news, the international news, as well as the business personality for you today. And interestingly, today we're going to start a new segment. It's called Business, the Road to Success when it comes to business. So join us as we give you an exclusive insight into selected industry as well as lots of financial tips, especially for all of y'all who want to invest in the market and to sort of interpret the trends and be part of the financial sectors in Sri Lanka. Right, to start off with, we have the personalities segment ready for you now. Well, today we're not going to talk about just one particular industry. We're going to talk about a lot of industries in a very, very broad sense. So the person we are going to talk to you from today is from John Keells. Well, John Keells Holdings PLC is Sri Lanka's largest listed company in the Colombo Stock Exchange. Well, from managing the largest number of rooms in Sri Lanka to tea plantations to dealing with stockbrokers, dealing with lots of different things, providing port and marine fuel services to IT solutions in Sri Lanka, John Keells is a vast conglomerate as well as a market leader in many sectors. So that is the company we're going to talk to you about, and let's take who our personality today is.
Began 150 years ago. A business that evolved through entrepreneurship, integrity, and innovation. Now on a journey to build businesses that are leaders in the region. We play in many fields, touch millions of people from all parts of the world, lead the lists of corporate top 10s. But our story is not about factories or ports or corporate corridors. It's about passion and excellence. So how may we serve you? Can we turn on the freshness or lay a table before you to tantalize your taste buds? We can safeguard your goods or feed your wanderlust. We can design spaces for living and investing. John Keells, green and gold, fire and ice, rainbows and new horizons. From high-tech to low emissions, from philosophy to passion, from rich legacy to vibrant, infectious energy. We serve communities in diverse ways. Build strong partnerships based on trust. Our employees are entrepreneurs and trendsetters, living our values. John Keells, pushing new frontiers, contributing to nation building, exploring and reinventing. We stand on the cusp of the future every day.
There we go, JKH, John Keells Holdings. That's what we're going to talk about today. Just to run through how big this company is. Just last year, the group revenue increased 6% to 91.58 billion rupees, and the group profit before tax increased by 25% last year to 19.08 billion rupees, and the return on equity for the company was 11%. So that is how big this company is, and we wanted to talk a little bit about how the company got there and where the company is going in the near future. So we have invited to the stage today Mr. Ajit Gunawardena. He is the Deputy Chairman of the John Keells Holdings Group. So it's our pleasure to have you on board today.
Thank you, Sakuni. Thank you for inviting me.
All right, so we'll talk about the hottest things first. Over the past few weeks, the waterfront projects today issued a media statement. They're saying things are not going as planned, but great stuff nevertheless. It's on progress. It's going to progress. Let's talk a little bit about what the project is first, and let's talk about where it's heading.
The project is ongoing. It's a 4.5 million square foot mixed development project. A total investment of approximately $850 million from us. So it is in fact the single largest private sector investment that has taken place in this country to date. It's an iconic architectural complex. It'll have a multitude of activities in it, from hotels and conferencing to retail, malls, to office and residential space. The interesting aspect of this also is that it will generate direct employment in excess of 4,000 people and an indirect employment of about 15,000 people. So it's quite a significant aspect in terms of our portfolio.
Right. So how long have you been planning for this project?
We started conceptualizing this project post 2009. So it took about 2 years of sort of getting the idea generation into a solid form. And thereafter, when we worked out, and a lot of research went into this, it wasn't some sort of ad hoc thought process. It was designed taking into account and conceptualized taking into account the strategic sort of fit in terms of the future of where the economy can go. So it is fitting ourselves to the growth areas of the economy. So everything within this is designed for that, and I can talk about that.
Right. So the reason I asked you that question is to see how future-oriented this project is, and things are changing socially, politically, internationally. Lots of factors are changing. So of course you consider these factors when you're drawing out a project. So how will this project help Sri Lanka become, or help Colombo become a hub of excellence in terms of attracting the correct category of tourists?
Yeah. The whole concept of the project is based on the growing demand of the outbound traveler from the subcontinent. We are in a fantastic location. Our strategic location at this point in time in the global scenario is literally unbeatable. And we took a view, over 20-year view, into the future. A project of this nature, you can't obviously take a short-term view. So we've taken a 20-year view. We've worked out, or we've come up with the conclusion that the subcontinent will grow over the next 20 to 30 years. Outbound traffic from the subcontinent will increase exponentially. We have seen it happening, and it will continue to happen. And this design here is based on catering to those needs of the new traveler. The key aspect, one of the key aspects of this is that it has very, very large conference spaces. At any given time, it can accommodate approximately 4,500 to 5,000 delegates within this complex. An international standard conference center, and that's essentially what we have built. The conference market in the subcontinent is even now about $6 billion, growing again at a pace that I really don't think we can cope in this part of the world. So for us, this is a fantastic opportunity. The other aspect is in terms of spend. We anticipate the corporate spend and the conference spend to be higher than the average traveler. So this is targeted to ensure that when we have the corporate traffic coming in, that they will actually stay within the complex, spend on other activities. And for example, the mall that we talk about in this complex is not a traditional mall. It will be further entertainment for the younger generation coming out of the subcontinent, and it's all about driving footfall and driving spend.
Right. We're in conversation with the Deputy Chairman of John Keells Holdings Group. So there were two questions that were directed to you from some of our viewers who are connecting to us on Business Today on our Facebook fan page. And the questions to you are, did the Waterfront Properties Private Limited intend to operate a casino or to own a casino license?
Not to own a casino license. Certainly the intention, linked to what I told you before, was to rent space within the complex for a casino, an international standard casino operator. However, even to rent the space and for an international operator to come in there, the regulatory framework had to be in place. So if the regulatory framework was in place, then this could have happened. So yes, so there we were going to rent part of the space for a casino, and that's something that we believe again, is something that can drive traffic. Keep in mind that the subcontinent, India in particular, have a high, the consumer there has a high propensity to gamble for game and a great liking for gaming. It happens in an informal environment there now, and always we feel that by attracting that traffic here, we will get a greater spend, we will fill our hotel rooms at the rates that we require, and will drive what will be very beneficial to the tourism segment and the economy.
Right. So you can talk to us live through our Facebook page, which is Channel I Business Today. Another question that was posted to the John Keells Group was, did the Waterfront project request or turn down any tax exemptions on gaming activities under the Strategic Development Projects Act?
In the Strategic Development Act that we have got approved, there are no tax benefits granted to any revenue, anything to do with the gaming aspect. The gaming anyway was to be separately run, and that would have run under the normal tax regime. So absolutely nothing for in that regard.
Right. So moving on to the delay in the Cinnamon Life project, it was later renamed Cinnamon Life. Let's talk about the delay. What happened there? When is it due? And what can we expect?
Yeah, I think there's been some confusion in terms of the communication of that. Essentially, we were planning for completion of construction to be in 2018 as per the original sort of targets, and that's got pushed to 2019. So it's just about a year off. And the reason for this is, again, simply the terrible weather we had last year. Our landmass that we are building on, which is in Glennie Street, is and slap bang next to the Beara Lake, has a very high water table. And this was the period, the whole period of the last 18 months was the time that the piling was taking place. As you know, the rainfall that we had during last year was unprecedented, and unfortunately the contractors were not prepared with the dewatering equipment that would have been required to continue work while we were having that type of rainfall, and that caused delays by the contractor. So it's simply contractor delays, nothing to do with us. We are going full steam ahead with the project.
Well, anybody living in Colombo would have first-hand experience when it comes to the weather. So there are two things that can bother anybody, that can drop their jaws. One is the weather, second is congestion. Like Colombo, it's really hard to travel around traffic-wise. It's impossible. So my question to you now is away from the Waterfront project. It's towards the group. How can the group help reduce the traffic burden in Colombo?
Well, I'm not sure whether the group can be part of the reducing of the traffic burden. I think the issue here really is to focus on the public transport. And this is completely outside the group, and this is... So
no future plans to...
We will stick to our, as far as the group is concerned, we will stick to our verticals and continue to invest in those verticals. There is a strategy and behind that. The verticals are designed based on where we believe the growth sectors are going to be. And at a macro level, there are two aspects to this. One is what we believe is our strategic location, so port-related services, and the subcontinent being one. We believe the subcontinent will grow and grow over the next 30 years. And the second is the growing disposable income in Sri Lanka, and tapping the consumer in Sri Lanka, who will have more disposable income as the per capita GDP grows over the next 10 to 20 years.
Right. So you're talking about some of the market trends that you picked up over the past few months. Let's talk about some of the interesting things we can look forward to apart from the Waterfront project that the group can offer.
Well, obviously I can't sort of divulge any sort of internal strategy discussions and so on, because these would be price sensitive. But essentially, I mean, if you look at it from the perspective of our balance sheet and what we intend to do, we certainly intend to continue growing our balance sheet in the areas that we are involved in at this point in time. We think we are well positioned in terms of our market shares, our expertise, to continue to sort of invest heavily in these areas. Our view is that in areas like the retail business, which is the supermarkets and the food and beverage business, that there is going to be further growth as the consumer demands more products of high quality, of consistent quality island-wide, and we think that we can widen our product portfolio to achieve that. We believe that the financial services industry will continue to grow, again taking into account the growing disposable income and savings capacity of the local market. On the transportation side, we see the ports and logistics area having great potential, again taking into account the strategic location of Sri Lanka. On the property development side, the need for housing and convenience certainly is something that that we believe is going to be there. There is a shortage of housing and housing units, so that's an area that we will continue to expand on. So a lot of investment in those areas. In the leisure side, I think tourism is a low-hanging fruit. We've just begun. We've got 1.8 million tourists in Sri Lanka. We think that's very small in terms of what the potential is. Frankly, we've been out of the market for 30 years or 25 years as a result of what we went through during the conflict, but in a way, it gives us an advantage. The markets that have grown in the region, being Malaysia and Thailand, which now have close to 30 million tourists, we can avoid the mistakes that they have made. We can keep as a result of us not having that level of expansion, we have a pristine environment which we should protect and we should enhance with planned development. And I think we can position this market to be a very high value market in terms of tourism. So tourism area, you will see us playing a lot more in that area.
Right, so you're giving us just bits and pieces of selected industries and sectors. What about the financial sector, the Colombo stock market, in terms of its performance and where we're heading? What sort of analysis would you give us?
I mean, if I could predict the stock market, I wouldn't be sitting
not a prediction, but your comment on how it has been performing.
No, I think what you're seeing in the market is the result of the external factors, together with obviously some of the internal factors that we are experiencing. But one can't avoid some of the external shocks that is taking place now. I mean, the global scenario is quite unsettled. There is a lot going on out there, so you're going to have impacts of that as foreign flows start moving back and forth. There's quite a bit of volatility that one has to experience. But finally, in my view, one must take a 5-year view all the time, and that's how the group looks at its investments. We look at our portfolio in 5-year cycles, and if you take a 5-year sort of cycle, I think there is a lot of potential in the local market. I mean, we are at a point where I think you're going to see significant growth going forward. With all the opportunity that is ahead of us. So I'm very optimistic.
Right. So we're talking about the positives and the smiles. Let's talk about the weaknesses. So being aware of what's happening locally, what are some of the weaknesses that you have identified, your personal comments on this, that may hinder economic growth in Sri Lanka?
No, I mean we've got a long way to go in terms of what we need to do to have a platform that is conducive towards private investment and foreign direct investment. I think it's happening. We need to make sure that the aspects of governance are institutionalized and are actually functioning. I think that gives a lot of confidence for investment. We need predictability and stability in terms of the economic environment. So consistency in policy is very important. So I mean, to my mind, these are two very important aspects. From the aspect of what has to be done in terms of the infrastructure of the country, certainly continued infrastructure development is important, and that should continue. Whether it is private investment and certain investment by government on the superstructure of the country is important. We need to continue with that. And I think a very important aspect is education. I think the education sector needs to be focused on not only in the science and technology side, which is very important at the high end, but at the vocational end, because what that does in an economy with a small population like ours is it gives us productivity. So I think the education area, to have a relevant education relevant for this time and age, is also very important.
Well, humans have infinite needs, but limited number of resources. So this whole concept of sustainability is absolutely crucial. How would you define sustainability? Is it economical, is it environmental, or is it a mixture of everything?
No, it's a mixture. It can't be one or the other. It has to be a mixture. And John Keells operates in an integrated manner. We don't look at things simply from a financial perspective. It can't work that way. That's a rather selfish perspective. So it is an integrated approach that we take in all of our businesses. And we work with the community, we work with all our stakeholders. And you can see it in some of the areas. I think I can give a couple of examples in our food and beverage area, and the retail business, supermarket business. A lot of work is being done, and we, for example, all our vanilla for our vanilla ice cream is sourced by, from a farming community that has been created and is supported by us. They get market prices for their vanilla. We get all our supplies from our farmers, which used to be ad hoc in the past. It to be not necessarily the right quality. Now everything comes at the right quality levels, consistency of supply. The same with our ginger. For the ginger beer comes on the same basis. So a large number of farmers that we support there. Our fresh produce to the supermarkets comes straight from the farm gate all the way to our collection centers all around the country, and that will continue to increase as we go forward. So it is an integrated approach that we take, and this is not simply done purely for the basis of capturing margin, but it is satisfying all our stakeholders, from our consumer to the citizens of this country.
Right. So we were quickly running through the community development slide of the John Keells Holdings Group. We're talking about how John Keells connects with the local community and makes use of their resources as well. Having said that, we'd like to talk in detail about how sustainable the John Keells path is. How sustainable is the John Keells path?
The John Keells path. Well, the John Keells path, I believe, is sustainable, and we've been here for almost 145 years. In my view, we are going to be here for another 145 years. And this is because, there are many factors. One is what I just spoke to you about, the whole thing about having an integrated approach to our business. But actually, very importantly, we are a sort of a unique animal in this country. We are probably the only entity that runs on a meritocracy. It is a company, none of us own the company. We are there for our term and we go. So anybody can rise to the leadership level at any level, to any level of the company. Nobody is recruited or promoted in the company because they are a son or daughter of an owner or any connected party. It is a pure meritocracy, and a meritocracy in our opinion, from the company's perspective, is what works, and that is what has worked for John Keells, and I believe that is what will continue to work. It's a company of the country, for the country, and for the people.
Right. So coming out of Sri Lanka now, talking away from all the environmental, the political, economical aspects of Sri Lanka, let's talk a little bit about the international factors. Oil prices are going down. Price of a barrel is about $31 today. Lots of other political instabilities going on in the world. How do these international factors affect Sri Lanka?
Well, in today's in today's world, every aspect of that what goes on in the world has an impact. One has to be ready for it and act and be able to take advantage sometimes of these sort of environments. So, obviously, the drop in oil prices has a positive impact on our import bill. However, it could have a negative impact on some of our on some of the countries that we support or we service through, whether it is our people going and working there, or our exports of tea and so on. So we've got to manage this, and we see these issues in terms of even in terms of tourism. External impacts we do feel some of these things. An uncertain environment does have its impact in terms of attracting investment as well. So all it means is we have to just work smarter. We have to be sharper. These won't go away. There will always be issues that one has to tackle. But listen, from what we have gone through over the last 30 years, or up to 2009, and come out of it relatively well, I mean, I'm sure we can manage in what's going on now in the world.
All right, so that's where the interview stops for today. But now I'm going to turn towards the Deputy Chairman of JKH. I want to talk to you about you. Okay, so let's trace your beginning and where you are today. That's what I want to talk about, to bring out your personality today. If you could travel back in time and have a conversation with the old you, what would you pass on? What's the message you would give?
Okay. I would say passion is the key to whatever you do. Find your passion and just focus on it. Just go for it. It's nothing else. It's simply working from the heart, working with integrity, absolute integrity. You cannot compromise values. You have your values and you have passion, and I will guarantee you, you will win.
Right, so I'm sure you've had a lot of good days as well as bad days. So today, the final question to you is, to a young startup, to somebody who's just finishing off school or just about to graduate, what sort of message would you like to leave us with tonight?
Essentially the same thing. Don't forget your values. Do not compromise on your values. That is the key thing. And thereafter, you go after your passion. A young guy, and in today's world, not like when I was young, the opportunities were limited. In today's world, you have a whole host of opportunities. Go for it. Go after it. Try it. May work, may not work. You do not fail. Every step is a step in terms of experience and knowledge.
All right, thank you very much for those inspiring words. It was lovely to have you on board today. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you, Sakuni. It was a pleasure.
With that, we'd like to take a quick break. When we come back, we have our new segment to you, which is called Road to Business, as well as the Colombo Stock Exchange updates. Welcome back. This is Business Today. I'd like to take a look at some of the top story for you today is that Indian rates tied to fiscal discipline, says as Ranjan signals the Prime Minister of India. That's the top story for you on our show. Apart from that, the local story for you is that the Sri Lankan market closes up 1%, and 2.3 million shares of the central finance company crossed at 225 rupees and 50 rupees today. In other international stories, Google passes Apple as the world's most valuable company. So top story there coming to you as well. So those are some of the stories, but we like to talk a little bit about the new segment we are going to introduce on Business Today. It's called The Road to Business. Well, it's understood what we're talking about. We're talking about giving you tips to make sure your business venture is successful and it's sustainable for many more years to come. So we have invited a professional to join us every week, every Wednesday from 10 p.m. onwards on the show as a separate segment named Business Road to Business, and he will talk to you about how you can turn an unsuccessful, unprofitable business into a good business, into a profitable and sustainable business, and to make sure that you're smiling and that you are having a lot of money coming in to your pockets. So there we go. That's what we're going to talk to you about. And the personality joining us is Mr. Heshan Idrisinghe. He's the CEO of Vitro Communications. A very good evening to you.
Evening to you too. Thanks for having me.
Right. So today we want to talk about something everybody's sort of dying to hold on to. If you take the business cycle, there's ups and downs, boom to bust. There's depression, recession, and then there's, coming up a little bit, recovery, boom, then you go bust again. So people want to stop this volatility, stop the volatility of fluctuations. Yeah. And they say people are facing a recession. If the economy is facing a recession, they just want to pull out. That's the attitude that's generally there. Even in terms of the stock exchange, if the stocks are not performing, they just want to run away. Right. Okay. So what should happen there?
Well, we normally see when the markets are going down, it's a very good way to grow your business because everyone's cutting back on their marketing costs and cutting back on the opportunities to reach the markets which are not being advertised. So when it comes to a small and medium level enterprise, most businesses, they are stagnant for 2-3 revenue generating channels. Probably they do business through referrals, and they will probably market themselves through advertising. But there are so many different revenue generating channels you can market your business. So it's very important that a business has more revenue generating channels, because it doesn't actually cost a lot to have more. For example, if you take online, it's not that hard. It doesn't cost a lot to have a proper online strategy to get leads and sales. So if you have more revenue channels, that's number one. And also, you need to optimize your revenue generating process. If there's a company which has 5 people, let's say a small and medium level business, those 5 people could be utilized better than they're already doing. There could be a receptionist who is only answering the incoming calls, but you could probably organize that person to have a script, and whenever the off-peak hours for that person is there, she can call on customers, she can call on cold calls, she can do cold calls and follow up on sales. So it's about having more revenue generating channels and also optimizing your existing business.
Right, so my understanding is that you take unsuccessful businesses that are making losses and you give them a makeover, revamp them to make sure that they're making profits once again. What is the process here? What do you do?
Yes, it's both ends. It could be unsuccessful business. It also could be business which are already doing some level of business. What we do is we first see, okay, how are they already earning money? If a business is already there, there is something which is bringing in money. That's why they're already there. We look at the revenue generating processes for that business, and we dissect them. We break it apart and see, okay, where can we optimize? Where can we improve the revenue generation process? Once we do that, we multiply the number of revenue generation processes, right? So if I can give you an example, okay, we have a client who is in the acupressure therapy. It's an acupuncture without needles. They initially, it's a small level, medium business. They initially had the money coming in only through one marketing channel, which was referrals. Right? Even that was not systematized properly. So they were working so hard on the operations end, but they were doing so much less effort to bring in more customers. So there were times where business is so dependent upon the referrals. So for instance, like that, what could be done is see, okay, how can we systematize the referral process? How can we get customer when they come to have to give another 2-3 extra referrals so that they can bring in business? Number one. Number two is how can you have online presence, because actually their market, their target market was very much going parallel with the online market in Sri Lanka. So having more revenue channels was one of the strategies we added to them.
Right, so my question to you is a bit, I can understand where I'm going with it, but I just want to ask the question to you anyway. The question is, when somebody wants to start a business, the normal practice is to conduct a feasibility study. You need to do your market research. You need to know who your competitors are, what sort of a pricing strategy they sort of have.
Right.
Is it compulsory? Can people get lucky with it? So is it required to conduct market research before you enter?
That's a very good question. Actually, market research is better done through an inexpensive test. There's this very famous book of Claudia Hopkins. The book is called Scientific Advertising. And in that he mentions that any business, any marketing strategy, if you're going to start a business tomorrow, there's always an inexpensive way to test a segment of the market and see whether it's working or not. And this could be through a small advertisement. It could be from a number of questionnaires, surveys. So market research could be done in a practical way. You run a test, you see how it's going to operate. If it works, you put more money into that. And basically you have a business. What most people do, the mistakes they make, is they put so much of their hard-earned money into a business without testing it, without testing the market. Sometimes the product could be so good, but they market to the wrong market and they burn out all the cash and there's no way to test other markets. It would have been so much easier if they would have tested one market, and if it doesn't work, that's fine. Test another small market, small investment, and then they will probably find profitability there.
Right. So this whole process of revamping, how long does it take?
Well, I would say it's much more of optimization because, I mean, when it comes to a business, I strongly believe that you don't need a lot of money to start a business, any business, because any business is worked around people, relationships, assets. If you have a company which is doing a product, if you can find a market who needs that product, you can be the intermediary at the beginning and have a profit margin there and start a business. So for that, it doesn't take much time. It'll probably take, it could be just a number of days sometimes. It's just a matter of inking it, having an agreement with them, and then starting off. Most businesses, I mean, if you take manufacturing businesses, which started small, they started as traders. They started buying and selling, they found a market, then they invested more money because they saw the profitability in that market and grew it gradually. Now, when I'm saying gradually, that doesn't mean that you have to stay for another 10, 15 years to see profitability. But the first steps should be gradual, and after that, when you see profitability, you still can leverage by having collaborations with suppliers and buyers and increasing your business very fast. Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Right, so the reason Mr. Indrasinghe is joining us today once again is to help you succeed in your business venture. The Road to Business, that is the name of the segment. And if you have a business that, as like you said, is not doing that well, or if it's doing well, but you're not sure if it's going to sustain in the market in the long run, well, the number for you is 250-1610. Once again, it's 250-1610. Mr. Heshan Indrasinghe is with us. He would like to take your case study and help you in the future. Not, of course, on air, but in the next future episodes, they like to refer to some of the case studies and explain what's happening. So if you want to, once again, give your business venture a makeover or to make sure it's sustainable in the future, please do get in touch with us. The number for you is 250-1601. So let's talk a little bit about what you have done in the past. Let's run through some case studies. How successful have you been in turning businesses around?
Yes, we've been pretty successful. The client also plays a big part. I mean, what we can do is we don't work for them, but we work with them. We can set up strategies for them which are very practical, and they need to implement the strategies that we tell them to do, because there's a reason that they have called us to help them. One case study is a foldable flat shoe for ladies. I mean, you might agree that having high heels all the time is quite hard in a corporate environment. So there was this product which is a foldable flat shoe which could be sold to the ladies market. We created 127 leads, warm leads, to purchase that product within just 6 days. And our cost to acquire a warm lead. A warm lead is a customer who is very close to buy. It was around just 40 to 50 rupees. So that is a very good case study. Another case study was I was helping a financial consultant, Hussein Muzaji, with his financial practice. He wanted to get leads for his events and for his seminars. So we ran something online for that, which gave him per dollar, he was able to get 40 to 50 leads. So there's a strategy behind, you just can't advertise and get leads, but there's a strategy behind it. But my point is, it's possible. It's always possible to make a success from a very small amount of investment.
Right. So my next question to you is a bit different. We're talking about companies who are not that successful or not that fruitful. But what happens if you want to make a bad investment? The question to you is, if a business is not that successful, is it wise to invest money in it with the intention of making it profitable?
If the business is not successful, there's a reason why it's not successful. It's probably they're not attracting the right market. probably the quality of the product is not good. There could be a reason. So if you keep on doing what's already been done, which is going down a spiral, then you're definitely not going to succeed. However, that business already has workforce, that business already has relationships with customers. So you probably have to put some quality time in figuring out what exactly went wrong and see how you can leverage your existing assets. For example, I think that way you'll be able to understand it in a very good context. Let's say there's a curtain manufacturer who provides for all hotels, right? Let's say he's on a daily basis, he's working so hard, he goes all in Colombo and out of Colombo to find hotels to buy his curtains, right? He might think that the only product he could sell is curtains, but there's so much more that he could do. He could link up with probably detergent companies, he could link up with air freshener companies, he could link up with probably furniture companies, because he's already having the relationship with the prospective buyer, which those other companies want to. He can act while he's selling his curtains, another couple of businesses along with that. So one visit, he's leveraging himself, selling 2-3 products. If the curtains don't sell, something else will sell.
Right, so there we go. We're talking about making your business venture successful. So we're going to give you tips through this segment, which is Road to Business. If you have any doubts, any questions you want to clarify, we can do so through the business show. You can write to us on our Facebook page, which is Business Today Channel I. Alternatively, you can call on 250-160-10. So if you have any questions you want answered, you can direct the questions to Mr. Edru Singha through our Facebook channel, which is Business Today Channel I, or the telephone number, which is 250-1601. It can be anonymous. We can just throw the questions out on air, but we will find the solution and the most sustainable way of going about it. Now I'd like to talk to you about SMEs.
Yeah.
The SMEs in Sri Lanka seem to be struggling somewhat, and the sustainability of the SMEs are questioned. What sort of comments do you have to make regarding the problems faced by SMEs?
Because they are doing things which everyone else does. Okay, let me give an example. I think that's the best way I can give you the practicality of the whole thing. Let's say there's a retail shop, and there are no customers coming in. Let's say it's a salon, right? For some time of the month or the year, customers aren't coming in. He could probably not do any marketing and just stay. But any salon can have a proper follow-up process, because after probably, I mean, for a man, they had to cut their hair at least once a month. So they can have some kind of a follow-up system which doesn't cost them any at all. After 1 month, they make a call. After 1 month, they take the email address and an email. Okay, please come. We are waiting for you. We will be glad to serve you. So they are not being proactive. That's actually the right word. They're not. They're waiting. They're very reactive. If they have a proper strategy in place, okay, when a customer comes, take their details, follow up on them, get them come again, get more referrals from them. If they become proactive, regardless of the economy, you will see profitability. And I am a strong believer of that.
All right, thank you very much for those tips to make your business successful. The segment for you is Road for Business. And this was Mr. Heshan Edru Singha from Vitro Communications. He's the CEO of Vitro. Thank you very much for your presence today. And we hope to catch up with you this time tomorrow.
Thanks for having me, Kassim. Thank you very much.
With that, we'd like to take a quick look at some of the top corporate stories making headlines across the globe and, of course, in Sri Lanka. Stay with us. The top business story for you today is from India, as India held interest rates unchanged on Tuesday, with the Reserve Bank of Indian Governor Raghuvan Rajan sending a message to the Prime Minister Narendra Modi that continued fiscal discipline was necessary to further increase rate cuts. Well, the Indian economy is currently being viewed as a beacon of stability because of the steady deflation, a modest current account deficit, and a commitment to fiscal gratitude, says the Reserve Bank of India's statement. And the structural reforms in the forthcoming union budget that boost growth while controlling spending will create more space for monetary policy to support growth, while also ensuring that inflation remains on the projected path of 5% by the end of 2016 and 2017. And in Sri Lanka news updates for you regarding the market update, the ASPI closed at 6,425 points. That was up by 62.78 points, or the ASPI was up by 0.99%. Meanwhile, 2.3 million shares of the Central Finance Company crossed at 225 rupees and 50 cents on Monday, and the Central Finance Company shares at 30 rupees and 9 cents. That was a reduction of 2.2%. In other stories, the exchange rates, the US dollar versus the Sri Lankan rupee opened at 143 rupees and 95 cents. And the Asian stocks dipped on the back of weak manufacturing data from China and low oil prices. Japan's stock market was down by 0.3%, while Australian stock market was down by 0.5%. The South Korean market was up by 0.6%. Meanwhile, Singapore's market was up by 1%. Chinese data slowed according to reports to more than expected in January, to its weakest level since 2002. We have another interesting story we want to share with you now. It's basically when Google praising Apple as the world's most valuable company. So Google's parent company Alphabet has reported fourth quarter earnings driving up the company's shares by 8%. Alphabet, that's Google's parent company, shares jumped after the strong earnings report, making Google worth roughly about $544 billion through Apple's market capitalization stood at $534 billion. That has made Alphabet the world's most valuable technology company and most valuable company overall. Apple secured the title of the most valuable tech company of 2010 when it passed Microsoft at a valuation of around $220 billion. For the 3 months ended in 2015, Alphabet posted a total revenue of $21.32 billion. And the very strong revenue growth in the fourth quarter reflects the vibrancy of Apple's businesses, driven by mobile searches as well as YouTube and programming, advertising, as well all areas in which Apple has been investing for many years. And the final story for you today is once again dealing with Sri Lanka-Indian relationship, where Sri Lanka-India Power Link pre-feasibility study complete. Well, the pre-feasibility study for the Sri Lanka-India HVDC transmission link have already been done in collaboration with the Power Grid India and CEB, says a senior official. There's a big opportunity there, says Damita Kumar Singha, Director General of Public Utilities Commission of Sri Lanka. Now, India is connected to Bangladesh, Nepal, Bhutan, and Sri Lanka is a country which is outside this grid at the moment, and there are power deficits at various time intervals in both countries. Well, Mr. Damita Kumar Singha was speaking at a recently concluded 22nd Steering Committee meeting of South Asia Forum for Infrastructure Regulation held in New Delhi in India. Mr. Kumar Singha also said that considering these coal power plants and increased renewable energy for the off-peak load, renewable energy for the off-peak load, interconnection with the region is very much useful. He also concluded by saying that the large renewable energy potential, especially wind and solar in the northern part of the country, which is very close proximity to India, so there should be a mechanism to harness and evacuate this power without any issue to the existing power system, he noted. With that, we take a bow on today's business today. Thank you very much for being a part of the show. We hope you have a pleasant week ahead. Take care. Good night.